The healthcare system is a for-profit system. I think that we have to break up and put in public hands the big banks. We have to change the election system across the country.
How does the current economic system contribute to problems like poverty, lack of opportunity, and the fact that almost 30 million Americans are uninsured, while double that number are underinsured?
Well, I mean, you know, the healthcare system is a for-profit system. And the purpose of the pharmaceutical industry, purpose of the big hospitals is to make money. You know, curing people is a side product.
There's nothing wrong about making money for the hospitals and the pharmaceutical.
Well, I think that I would respond that there is something wrong with a focus on profit making that puts profits before people.
Okay.
That puts profits before the environment. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's created a circumstance, not just in our country, but worldwide, where we are now facing existential crises. In health, for example, like the COVID pandemic, with respect to the environment, with global warming, and so on and so forth. And so humanity is reaching a situation where unless we are able to address some of these problems, which by the way have to be addressed globally, you can't solve them in one or another country. Mm-hmm. Countries have to combine to address them in order to deal with it. But now Trump has moved away from the World Health Organization. So how do you deal with issues like pandemics if you're stepping aside from? No, it's craziness, and so this system is based on maximizing profit. Mm-hmm. You know, that's the thing that drives the economy, that drives the politics, and so on and so forth. And it's out of control, and therefore it's incumbent upon the democratic movement in this country, the working class movement, to grab a hold to it, to put it in the hands of the people so that we can address some of these issues in a more rational way.
So in this case, let me ask you, what are the key policies that you suggest for a stronger welfare state, including affordable housing, childcare, and the access to health care, and how would they differ from the current programs?
I think that we have to break up the big monopolies. Mm-hmm. I think that we have to break up and put in public hands the big banks. Mm-hmm. You know?
When you say public hands, what do you mean by public hands?
What I mean is that they have to be put in the hands of the
state.
People. Not necessarily the state, because when you describe it as the state, it is interpreted as something that is far removed from the people. Mm-hmm. You know, and so we have to find a way to administer the banks and the corporation by bodies that are set up, run by the people who operate those banks and those industries, by the workers themselves.
Then let me be more specific? Are we talking here about public ownership?
Yes, we're talking about public ownership that is organized and exercised by working people. And so I think that that's a beginning to that's where you start to put in place an economy that is democratically operated and controlled.
Why do you think the voter turnout is low in the U.S. as opposed to many other Western democracies?
Well, I think that a lot of people feel that they don't have anything to vote for, you know, that our vote doesn't count, that it doesn't matter what you do. The politicians and the business forces that finance them are going to pursue whatever policies they want to pursue, and that therefore they have no stake in the process. You know, I tried to get my nephew once to participate in. This was maybe 4 or 6 years ago in one of the election campaigns in Ohio, you know. And he replied, "Why should I? They haven't done anything for me. They haven't done anything for my family." And I think that sentiment is widespread, you know, and so one of the big challenges that our party faces is how to reach and organize and activate that section of the population, because most Americans don't vote, you know, and of course the system, the election system, is set up to discourage them from voting. Voter suppression is long practiced and policy on the part of the Republican Party, and it's been made very difficult to vote, you know, and you know you are not the voting. The elections take place on a Tuesday, you know, when most people have to work, you know. And so on and so forth. And now they're trying to make it even more difficult by requiring, you know, identification and so on and so forth. And so I think that the big issue is that we have to reform the election system to make it easier. But more important than that is for us to put forward policies and programs that will relate to and address the real problems that people are facing, you know. So, for example, in the last election, Kamala Harris ran on a centrist campaign that called for things like setting up and funding small businesses, which is great. No one would argue that, but when you have a situation where, you know, tens of millions of people are unemployed or underemployed, you have to ask the question, why didn't she, at the very least, put forward some of the proposals that had been made by her administration, the Build Back Better platform that Mr. Biden had run and won. So I think that a big issue is developing platforms and programs that address people's needs. And I think that when that happens, you'll see a reinvigorated electorate.
What would a multi-party system in the U.S. look like, and how would it better represent the diversity of the political beliefs and social groups in the U.S.? And what are the biggest obstacles to move towards moving to a multi-party system?
Well, the biggest obstacle we've already talked about is money, and the influence of money in politics. And again, in order to address that, you have to have public financing. Political parties, in our view, are class parties. You know, they represent the interest of class forces. And we think that there is a basis for creating a political dispensation in the United States in which you would have, you know, several different parties competing for power, you know, representing different sections of the population. But in order to do that, you have to change the electoral system to...
Which part of the electoral system?
Well, in the first place, the ability to get on the ballot in each state, you know, which is restricted by election laws. So that's the first thing that you have to do. And then I think you know we have an election system at the national level that is very undemocratic. You know, so one of the things that you have to address is the Electoral College, and there's a increasingly popular demand to get rid of that. You know.
Get rid of the Electoral College.
Getting rid of the Electoral College. You know, elections in the United States are not determined by the popular vote, but a proportions of the vote that go to a specialized body based on the size of each particular state. You know. So we are very much in favor of a multi-party system, but in order to do that, we have to change the election system across the country.
Mm-hmm. Given the historical association of communism with repression and economic failure, how does the party expect to gain popular support in the U.S.? What is your strategy for overcoming this historical stigma?
Well, I'm not sure that the first thing that we have to do is to tell the truth about the previous attempts to build socialism and the successes that they had. You know, the story of the Soviet Union was not principally a story of economic failure. They accomplished great things in a short amount of time in very difficult circumstances. You know, they were able to build a society and an economy that was able to compete with the West, with the major capitalist countries for several decades. So I think that the first thing that you had to do is tell the truth about the successes that socialism had economically.
But eventually, they reached economically, at least economically, they reached a cul-de-sac.
They reached a impasse, in our view, that was not so much precipitated by an economic collapse, but by a political collapse that had mainly to do with the lack of democracy
Exactly.
in those countries.
So again, we're back again to the repression side of communism, or at least the application, that version of communism.
I think that our party is of the opinion that there are no universal models of socialism. You know, that the model which was developed in the Soviet Union, or the model that exists now in China or in Cuba, has to be based on the circumstances and history and culture of each particular country.
So you don't believe that communism is inherently incompatible to democratic values?
Not at all. Not at all. I think that successful socialism and communism is essentially, that the essence of it is democratic, you know. I think that the problem that we had in the Soviet Union was that because of that particular country's history, that they felt that they weren't able to allow for the participation of the working class in the operation of the economy and of the political system. They were fearful of opening up, which led to a situation in which big sections of the population were alienated from both the political and from the economic process, you know. It wasn't always like that, but that's what developed, particularly in the 60s and 70s, which led to finally that collapse. I think that Cuba has learned from those mistakes.
Do you think so?
I think that the adoption of the most recent constitution and the debates and discussions that have been held are certainly evidence of that. The development of this new family law that they recently adopted is evidence of that. I think that not only in Cuba, but also in China and Vietnam, they are finding ways to involve the population more organically in the operations of the country. In the United States, we call for what we describe as a Bill of Rights socialism, a socialism which is based on the U.S. Constitution and an expansion of the Bill of Rights that were very important and critical in the history of the United States. You know, the American people would not approve of the U.S. Constitution without a Bill of Rights, you know, and so in our situation, we advocate for a socialism which is essentially democratic, which we also think will be a multi-party system.
In its most recent war against Gaza,
We opposed it, we condemned it, we worked to end it. It was an atrocity. The United States, the U.S. ruling class and their political party owes a debt to the people of Palestine